My name is David Landini. The terms socialism, fascism and communism are often used to describe different styles of government, but there is not a clearly defined differentiation between them, and these titles are often used interchangeably. Socialist and communist are often used to describe the same country, while fascism is often used as a general pejorative with no understanding of what it is. Some of this interchange may be deliberate because historically these terms have been applied to Australia's wartime enemies, for example fascist Germany and Italy, and Cold War opponents such as the communist USSR and China. Interestingly, because fascist Germany was at war with communist Russia, it is often assumed that fascism is the opposite of communism. In reality, fascism has much more in common with communism than not. Many Australians do not want to think that Australia has any similarities in governance to their one-time enemies, so do not use the terms socialist, fascist or communist to describe Australia or historically friendly countries. Australia actually does have many similarities, and these similarities are increasing. These styles of governance need to be accurately described, understood and appreciated because they have existed previously throughout history, and due to society's susceptibility to being controlled by bad actors, with consequent impoverishment, destruction and death among citizens and neighbours, current citizens may be deceived into recreating similar societies with similar consequences. A recognition, understanding and appreciation of socialism, fascism and communism, and a knowledge of history will reduce the likelihood that the suffering caused previously by these styles of governance will occur. Descriptions follow. The first description has not been yet mentioned, but it is a necessary base for the others to be compared to. Voluntarism. The actions of citizens are voluntary. The government legislates the voluntary style of interaction and, if requested by a citizen in conflict, enforces laws and ensures that justice is maintained. There is an absence of compulsion of citizens by the government to act in any specific style. Government services are provided on a user pays basis, such as roads being built and maintained by taxing fuel purchases. The government is financed by voluntary citizens' contributions and does not compel contributions to itself. Producing material for self-consumption or providing material or services for voluntary exchange with other citizens and even non-citizens, for example shopping for food or buying a car, are examples of actions in a voluntary society. A militia, this being a military comprising of voluntary citizens with arms provided by themselves or by contributions from other citizens, is a description of a volunteer military. An example of this is the several militias in the United States of America. The government control of citizens is limited to restraining those citizens who intend to break the laws of the state. This includes ensuring agreements among citizens are fulfilled and ensuring that justice is enacted. Socialism. The compulsory collection by government of money or material from selected citizens and giving this as a gift to selected citizens of society with no control over the use of this gift is socialism. age pensions and child endowments are elements of a socialist-style society, as these are paid to selected citizens but do not include command of the citizens' expenditure. A militia, this being a military comprising of citizens but not under the control of the government, but with weapons, material and/or organisation financed by the government, such as armed citizens in Switzerland, is an example of a socialist military. The government controls citizens by enforcing laws and also creating subjection to and increasing dependence on government by giving material and money to selected members that has previously been collected from selected citizens. Fascism. Fascism involves the compulsory collection by government of money or material from selected citizens, with the government using the collected money or material as payment to selected citizens of society to build structures or provide organisation and services desired by the government. The government does not own the structures, nor is it master of the financed organisations. Privately owned schools, hospitals and all privately owned organisations that receive some fraction of financing from government are elements of a fascist-style society. Financial vouchers and subsidies for loans and insurance are also examples of fascism. A mercenary military, this being military temporarily employed, sometimes from a different society, which, while the government finances the cost of staff, equipment and supplies, is not the master of the staff and does not own the equipment or supplies. This is a fascist-style military. There are many examples of mercenary armies throughout history. For example, the Hessian troops fighting for Britain in the American Revolutionary War. A current example is the Swiss Guard in Vatican City. The government controls people in a fascist-style society by enforcing its laws and also by financing desired behaviour. Communism. In communism, government is the master of all citizens and selects and commands individuals and organisations to build structures or provide desired material and services. The government owns the material used and structures built. The government allocates material to citizens for their own use. Public hospitals, schools, police and all organisations commanded and property owned by the government are communist in style. A permanent military force is communist in style because the government is also the master of the military's organisation and owns the structures and equipment within the military. A communist government controls people and causes desired behaviour by enforcing laws, direct commands, and providing material as a reward for obedience, and punishing citizens for disobedience. These styles of government can be clearly defined, but a society cannot normally be described as solely voluntary, socialist, fascist or communist, because each society contains elements of each of these styles in varying quantities within itself. Switzerland, even with its communist military, cannot be described as a communist society, as it also contains a fascist militia, a socialist pension system, and a voluntary system of production and exchange of materials and services. A government can actually be accurately defined as socialist, fascist or communist by the amount of money it spends on its socialist, fascist or communist elements as a percentage of society's entire non-government income. If a society has a total non-government income of $1 billion with government expenditure of $100 million on socialist elements, this being 10% of total expenditure, this society can be accurately described as 10% socialist. If government expenditure on fascist elements is $100 million, this being 10% of total expenditure, this society can be described as 10% fascist. If government expenditure on communist elements is $100 million, this being 10%, this society can be described as 10% communist. If the government spends all of the above, it can accurately be described as 10% socialist, 10% fascist, 10% communist, and 70% voluntary. Australia includes elements of voluntarism, socialism, fascism, and communism. The proportion of socialism, fascism, and communism can be defined by government expenditure as a fraction of all non-government income. In the 2020 to 2021 financial year, the Australian Bureau of Statistics reports that gross domestic product, that is the dollar value of all non-government production, was $2,903,342,000,000, while total government expenditure was $876,400,000,000. Government expenditure is therefore 30% of non-government gross domestic product. While not expressing this expenditure as precise fractions, Australia is a 30% combination of socialism, fascism and communism. Australia may be described as 30% socialist, fascist and communist society. While some elements of these styles are necessary for a society to survive, for example the military, and other elements are desired by many people, for example pensions, throughout history bad actors have regularly gained control of society and used the government to inflict impoverishment, destruction and death upon the country's own citizens, and sometimes upon the neighbours of these societies as well. Australian government includes a significant and increasing fraction of socialist, fascist and communist elements, and with an associated increase in authoritarian treatment of Australians. Australians need to understand and recognise these styles of government and their accompanying authoritarianism and their potentially and practically violent law enforcement and the growth of these styles in Australia. And as a warning, beware.